Look, I have been teaching at the Galactic Defense Academy for 37 standard cycles, and let me tell you something, I have seen it all. Well, I thought I had seen it all until these humans showed up. My name is Moran, and I am what you might call the senior combat reflexes instructor here at the Academy. Got 6 arms, purple skin that can deflect most energy weapons, and reflexes faster than a Zentari hunting spider on stimulants. Been training the galaxy's finest warriors since before most of you were even a glimmer in your parents' reproductive organs. The Academy itself, oh, it is magnificent. Floating fortress the size of a small moon, equipped with training facilities that would make a Kython war chief weep tears of joy. We get the best of the best from across 12 sectors. Zentari warriors with their 4 arms and natural combat instincts, Bloraxians with their thick hides and telepathic coordination abilities, Kythons with their armored shells that can stop a plasma cannon blast. These are species that have been perfecting warfare for millennia, mind you. And then the humans arrived. Now, do not get me wrong, the paperwork checked out. Somehow, someway, these soft pink creatures, with their pathetically thin skin and laughably slow reflexes, had managed to pass the entrance examinations. I still think there was some kind of administrative error involved, but Commander Tom Molly, their human liaison officer, insists everything was legitimate. Commander Molly is about as typical as humans get, I suppose. Medium height, brown hair that he keeps trying to style despite zero-gravity training sessions, and this annoying habit of smiling when he should be terrified. He walks around like he owns the place, which is particularly amusing since his species barely discovered faster than light travel 50 cycles ago. 50 cycles, my breakfast this morning was older than their space program. But the one that really got my attention was Amy Kowalski. Now, Amy is what humans call average-looking, which means she has the standard 2 arms, 2 legs, and that bizarrely vulnerable arrangement of vital organs they call a torso. Brown hair pulled back in what they call a ponytail, which serves no tactical purpose whatsoever, and these strange blue eyes that seem to track everything without appearing to pay attention to anything. She showed up on day 1 with this group of other humans, Brandon Torres, some others whose names I honestly did not bother learning because I figured they would wash out within a week. Torres is this stocky human with dark hair who keeps making jokes that nobody else understands, and Amy just nods along like she gets it. It is deeply unsettling. The first time I saw Amy in action during basic movement drills, I nearly submitted a formal complaint to Admiral Vashi. This creature was stumbling through exercises that a Zentari hatchling could perform flawlessly. Her reaction times during preliminary testing were so slow that I actually checked if she was suffering from some kind of neurological disorder. The medical scanners said she was perfectly healthy, which only made it more confusing. But here is the thing that really bothers me. She passed all her written examinations. Top marks, actually. Perfect scores on tactical analysis, weapons theory, combat psychology. How does a species with reflexes slower than sedated Bloraxian cattle demonstrate such comprehensive understanding of warfare principles? And it is not just Amy. All the humans performed similarly. Terrible physical scores. Brilliant theoretical knowledge. It made no sense whatsoever. Which brings us to today. Combat Reflexes Examination Day. The day that separates the warriors from the civilians, the predators from the prey. Every species has to pass this test to advance to intermediate training levels. It is simple in concept, brutally effective in execution. We throw things at you, you avoid them or catch them. We attack you from multiple angles. You defend yourself. We test your ability to react to threats faster than your conscious mind can process them. The Zentari usually excel at this. What with their multiple arms and natural hunting instincts, Bloraxians do well because their telepathic abilities let them sense attacks before they happen. Kythons just tank through everything with their armored shells. Humans have been dreading this day since they arrived. Commander Molly keeps making these nervous jokes about how his people are adaptable and resourceful, but I can see the worry in his eyes. He knows what I know. His species is about to be exposed as the weakest link in galactic defense. Amy Kowalski sits in the front row of the briefing amphitheater, looking completely relaxed, while I explain today's procedures. She is actually yawning during the most important examination of her military career. I swear, these humans have no survival instincts whatsoever. What a shock to her competitors. They are fast, strong, wire, smart, and cunning, but the whole thing so little did I know, I was about to learn just how wrong I was about everything. The testing chamber is a marvel of engineering, if I do say so myself. Force field barriers, holographic threat projectors, automated weapons systems that can simulate everything from blade attacks to plasma bombardments. I have personally overseen the installation of every component over the past decade. It is designed to push any species to their absolute limits. All right, candidates, listen up, I announce, my voice echoing through the chamber's speakers. Today we separate the warriors from the well, from whatever humans are supposed to be. Commander Molly shoots me a look from the observation deck, but I pretend not to notice. Truth is truth, and the truth is about to be demonstrated quite spectacularly. First up is Zektar, a Zentari warrior built like a living weapon. 4 arms, each equipped with natural blade-like protrusions, reflexes that can track a photon beam. The testing sequence begins, and it is poetry in motion. Plasma bolts streak toward him from 6 different angles, and all 4 arms move independently, deflecting each target. Then come the physical projectiles, steel spheres launched at velocities that would pulverize most organic matter. Zektar does not just catch them, he catches them, analyzes their trajectory mid-flight, and throws them back at the launch points with enough force to disable the projectors. Magnificent. Excellent work, Zektar, I call out. Zentari combat excellence on full display. The Zentari grins with all 3 mouths, which is disturbing but impressive. His score, 96%. Only missed 2 targets, and that was because he was showing off toward the end. Next is Thekmor, a Bloroxian built like a living siege engine, dense hide that can absorb energy weapon strikes, and telepathic abilities that let him sense attacks before the weapon systems even finish calculating firing solutions. The test begins, and it is like watching someone casually stroll through a meteor storm. Every attack is anticipated, every threat neutralized before it becomes dangerous. His telepathic abilities are picking up the electromagnetic signatures of the weapons systems, giving him several seconds of advance warning. It is almost unfair, really. Outstanding, Thekmor. His score, 94%, would have been higher, but he got overconfident and took a glancing blow from a kinetic round. Then comes Kukes Luna, a Chthon warrior whose armored shell could probably survive a direct hit from a battleship's main gun. She does not even bother dodging most of the attacks. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, energy beams, they all just bounce off her natural armor, plating like. When she does move, it is with surprising grace for someone who weighs as much as a small transport vehicle. She catches projectiles not because she has to, but apparently because she finds it amusing. Score, 91%. And she was barely trying. I am feeling pretty good about things at this point. The established galactic powers are performing exactly as expected. Sure, the scores are not perfect, but these are the standards by which all other species are measured. The cream of the cosmic crop, so to speak. Commander Molly is looking increasingly nervous up in the observation deck. He keeps running his hands through his hair and making those strange facial expressions humans use to communicate distress. Poor fellow probably realizes his people are about to be completely outclassed. All right, humans, I call out, trying to inject some false encouragement into my voice. Your turn. Let us see what your species can manage. Amy Kowalski steps into the testing chamber, and I swear she looks like she is thinking about something else entirely. She is examining her fingernails, of all things. During the most important test of her military career, she is concerned about personal grooming. I say through the speaker system. Are you ready to begin? She looks up, apparently surprised that I am addressing her. "Oh, sure, whenever you want to start." The casual tone is almost insulting. Zektar prepared for 15 minutes, checking his equipment, stretching his forearms, mentally preparing for battle. The course spent 10 minutes in meditation, centering his telepathic abilities. Kexluna ran through her defensive stances, testing the articulation of her armor plates. Amy Kowalski is standing there like she is waiting for a transport to arrive. "Systems active," I announce, my confidence building. "Beginning sequence in 3, 2, 1. And that, my friends, is when everything I thought I knew about the universe turned out to be completely, utterly wrong. The testing sequence begins, and I lean forward in my instructor booth, ready to witness what I assume will be the most spectacular failure in Academy history. The first wave of attacks launches, plasma bolts streaking toward Amy from 3 different angles, each one calibrated to test basic evasion reflexes. Amy moves, but here is the thing that makes my 6 hearts skip a beat. She moves before the weapons finish firing. Not during, not after, before. Like she knew exactly where each bolt was going to be, before the targeting system had even calculated the firing solution. She sidesteps the first bolt without looking at it, leans backward to avoid the second, and actually reaches out and deflects the third with the back of her hand. Deflects a plasma bolt with her bare hand. The Berenji dissipates harmlessly across her palm, like she is brushing away an annoying insect. "What the?" I start to say, but the sequence is still running. Kinetic rounds launch next, steel spheres moving at speeds that would turn most species into fine paste. Amy catches one out of the air without even glancing at it, tosses it to her other hand like she is playing with a ball, then throws it back at the launcher with enough precision to hit the exact center of the targeting sensor. The sensor explodes in a shower of sparks. "Sorry about that," Amy calls out, cheerfully. "Should I pay for repairs?" I am staring at the readouts, and they make no sense whatsoever. Her reaction times are not just fast, they are impossible. Faster than Zentari combat reflexes, more precise than Bloraxian telepathic prediction, more efficient than Kython armor plating. But she is still standing there, looking like she is half asleep. "Continue the sequence," I manage to croak into the microphone. The next phase launches 12 projectiles simultaneously. A test designed to completely overwhelm any individual's ability to track multiple threats. It is supposed to be impossible to handle them all perfectly. The best any species has ever managed is 8 out of 12. Amy yawns, then she moves like liquid lightning, and suddenly all 12 projectiles are floating in the air around her, each one caught and held in perfect formation. She is juggling them. She is actually juggling 12 steel spheres that moments ago were traveling fast enough to punch through battleship armor. "Is this supposed to be challenging?" she asks, continuing to juggle while carrying on a conversation. "Because Brandon was telling me about this restaurant back on Earth that serves these things called nachos, and I am really curious about." That is when I lose my mind completely. Look, I have been doing this job for 37 cycles, and I have never, ever deviated from standard testing protocols, but watching this soft pink creature casually juggle what should have been lethal projectiles while discussing food something, inside my logical instructor brain just snap. I reach into my equipment locker and pull out my personal combat blade. It is a ceremonial weapon from my home world, balanced perfectly, sharp enough to cut through energy shields. I have been carrying it for 20 years, and it has never failed to find its target. Amy is still juggling and talking, her back turned to my booth, when I make a decision that will haunt me for the rest of my natural life. I throw the blade. Now, understand, this is completely against regulations, completely unprofessional, but I need to know if what I am seeing is real or some kind of elaborate hoax, so I put everything I have into this throw, 6 arms coordinating in perfect harmony, launching my blade on a trajectory that should be completely undetectable until the moment of impact. Amy is in the middle of explaining something about cheese sauce to Brandon Torres, who is watching from the sidelines, when my blade comes spinning through the air toward the back of her neck. She catches it without turning around, without interrupting her sentence, without even acknowledging that anything happened. So apparently you heat up these tortilla chips and then pour this orange cheese substance over them, which sounds absolutely disgusting, but Brandon swears it is delicious. She continues, now holding my ceremonial combat blade by the handle in her left hand, while still juggling with her right. The entire testing chamber goes silent, and I mean silent. You could hear a Kython's heart beating from 3 decks away. Admiral Vashi's voice crackles through the communication system from the command observation deck. Instructor Moran, did you just throw your personal weapon at a cadet? I cannot speak. My voice seems to have abandoned me entirely. Amy finally turns around, still holding my blade, and looks up at my booth with those unsettling blue eyes. Is this yours? She asks politely. Nice balance. Earth med blades tend to be heavier, but this has a really elegant weight distribution. She flips the blade in the air, catches it by the tip, and throws it back to me with casual precision. It embeds itself in the wall directly beside my head, vibrating with the force of impact. What in the 7 hells of Bloroxia was that? General Krafnog's voice booms through the speakers. The Kython general sounds like he is having some kind of emotional breakdown. Amy shrugs, a gesture that somehow manages to convey complete indifference to the fact that she just performed the impossible. What was what? The catch? That was just instinct. Instinct. Admiral Vashi's voice has gone up about 3 octaves. Instinct. Brandon Torres nods from the sidelines, like this is the most normal thing in the universe. Yeah, we all do that. Basic survival reflex from growing up on Earth. You hear something flying at your head, you catch it or dodge it. Pretty standard stuff. Standard. He called it standard. Commander Molly is leaning against the observation deck railing, and he has this expression on his face. It is not pride, exactly. It is more like resignation mixed with amusement, like he has been waiting for this moment and is not particularly surprised by what just happened. From him the call down, maybe you should explain the whole Earth childhood thing to our instructors. Amy sets down the projectiles she has been juggling, arranging them in a neat pile. Oh, right, sorry, I forgot you all might not know. Earth is kind of a hostile environment compared to most inhabited worlds. We grow up dodging things constantly. Falling tree branches, territorial animals, weather phenomena, sports equipment, younger siblings throwing stuff at us. She counts off on her fingers like she is listing grocery items. By the time we reach adulthood, catching random objects flying at our heads is pretty much automatic. Like breathing, you know? We do not really think about it. The silence stretches on for what feels like several geological ages. Finally, Admiral Vashi's voice comes through the speakers, and he sounds like someone who has just watched the fundamental laws of physics file a resignation letter. Instructor Moran, I think we need to have a serious discussion about human combat capabilities. I look down at Amy, who waves cheerfully up at the observation deck, then goes back to chatting with Brandon about food preparations. She has apparently already forgotten about the entire incident, and that is when I realize something that chills my purple blood to its very core. If catching a combat blade without looking is considered basic survival reflex for humans, what exactly are their advanced combat abilities like? The emergency briefing is called immediately. Admiral Vashi, General Krafnog, Judge Quintara from the Galactic Assessment Board, and Quartermaster A from the Supply Division all crowd into the observation deck. The atmosphere is tense enough to cut with Amy's reflexes. Instructor Moran, Admiral Vashi begins, his 3 eyes all focused on me with uncomfortable intensity. I need you to explain what we just witnessed. I honestly have no idea, sir. I gesture helplessly toward the testing chamber, where Amy is now sitting cross-legged on the floor, apparently meditating. According to every measurement we have, humans possess inferior reflexes compared to established galactic species. But what we just saw, Judge Quintara, a crystalline being whose species communicates through harmonic frequencies, chimes in with obvious distress. The cadet caught a projectile traveling at 300 meters per second without visual contact. This violates 17 different laws of physics and at least 4 biological principles. Maybe it was a fluke, General Kraftnog suggests, though he sounds about as convinced as someone trying to argue that stars are actually tiny holes in a cosmic blanket. A lucky accident. Commander Mali clears his throat from the corner where he has been standing quietly. Actually, sir, if you would like to see more demonstrations, Admiral Vashi and I shout simultaneously, but it is too late. Brandon Torres has overheard the conversation through the open communication channel. Hey, Amy, he calls out, they want to see more human reflexes. Should we show them the blindfold thing? Amy opens one eye and grins. Oh, that is a good idea, but let us make it interesting. She stands up and walks over to where my supply of training equipment is stored. Without asking permission, she pulls out a standard-issue combat blindfold, the kind designed to completely block all electromagnetic radiation across every spectrum known to galactic science. Brandon, you want to try first? Torres shrugs and walks into the testing chamber. Sure, why not? He puts on the blindfold and I run every scanner we have on him. No electromagnetic signals penetrating the material, no exotic radiation detection, no telepathic emanations. By every measurement available to galactic science, Brandon Torres is now completely unable to perceive his environment. Quartermaster, Judge Quintara chimes urgently. Are you recording this? Quartermaster A, a nervous little Zentari, who usually handles equipment requisitions, is frantically taking notes with all four hands simultaneously. Yes, sir, but I am not sure our instruments are calibrated to measure whatever this is going to be. All right, Brandon, Amy calls out cheerfully. Standard defensive sequence. I will start with easy mode. Easy mode? Easy mode? Amy walks over to the control panel, and I watch in horror as she starts adjusting settings. She cranks the difficulty level up to maximum, sets the projectile count to 20 simultaneous launches, and increases the velocity to combat lethal levels. Commander Mali calls down, sounding slightly concerned. Maybe we should start with something less. Amy will be fine. Amy waves dismissively. Brandon, you ready? Brandon Torres, standing in the middle of the chamber wearing a blindfold that should render him completely helpless, gives a thumbs up. Bring it on. The sequence launches, and 20 plasma bolts streak toward Brandon from every direction, at velocities that would challenge a Zentari War Master. Brandon moves like he is dancing. No, that is not accurate. Dancing implies following a rhythm, some kind of predictable pattern. Brandon moves like he is part of some cosmic conversation with physics itself, slipping between plasma bolts that miss him by millimeters, ducking under energy beams, spinning away from kinetic rounds with fluid grace that makes my six-armed species look clumsy by comparison. Is he doing that? General Kraftnog whispers, his armored shell plates. He cannot possibly be tracking those projectiles. Judge Quintara chimes frantically. There is no way for him to detect their approach vectors. Brandon finishes the sequence without taking a single hit, pulls off his blindfold and grins up at the observation deck. How was that? Want me to try it with my hands tied behind my back? The silence is so profound that I can hear my own circulatory system functioning. Quartermaster A drops all four writing implements simultaneously. This is impossible. I need to recalibrate every threat assessment in our database. Actually, Amy says conversationally, that gives me an idea. Brandon, remember that game we used to play as kids? Dodge the asteroid field? Brandon's grin gets wider. Oh, that is a great idea. We have not done that in years. What is dodge the asteroid field? Admiral Vashi asks in a voice that suggests he really does not want to know the answer. Amy starts adjusting the testing chamber controls again, but this time she is accessing subsystems I did not even know existed. Well, see, when we were growing up on Earth, we used to play this game where we would throw rocks at each other as hard as we could, and the goal was to not get hit. She is still talking while casually hacking into military-grade targeting systems, like she designed them herself. The trick is, you cannot just watch the rocks. You have to feel them. Listen to the air displacement, sense the motion patterns, Predict trajectory based on the thrower's body language. It is really fun, once you get the hang of it. Judge Quintara's harmonic frequencies are reaching distress levels that are probably audible in the next star system. They threw rocks at each other? For entertainment? Sure. Brandon nods enthusiastically. Amy was always the best at it. She could dodge stuff thrown by 3 people simultaneously while running through a forest. It was really impressive. Amy finishes her adjustments and steps back with satisfaction. Okay, this should be about equivalent to a moderate asteroid field density. Brandon, you ready? The testing chamber transforms. Suddenly there are not 20 projectiles, there are hundreds. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, energy beams, all launching in continuous waves from every direction. The chamber fills with deadly light and sound. Brandon Torres steps into this mechanical hurricane wearing nothing but a standard cadet uniform and that same casual grin. And then he proceeds to dance through it, like he is strolling through a gentle spring rain. I watch the readouts in complete disbelief. Not only is he avoiding every projectile, he is moving with such efficiency that he barely appears to be exerting himself. Occasionally he reaches out and catches a kinetic round, examines it briefly, then tosses it aside like he is sorting through pocket change. This is impossible, I whisper. The human nervous system cannot process information at these speeds. Commander Mali finally speaks up, and there is something in his voice, pride, maybe, mixed with what sounds like pity for the rest of us. Instructor Moran, he says quietly, I think it is time we had an honest conversation about where humans come from. The testing chamber powers down, and Brandon walks out looking like he just finished a light warm-up exercise. Amy gives him an approving nod, then both humans sit down and wait patiently while the rest of us try to process what we just witnessed. Commander Mali takes a deep breath and addresses the stunned observation deck. Gentlemen, ladies, and crystalline entities, let me tell you about a little planet called Earth. He activates the holographic display system, and suddenly we are looking at what can only be described as a cosmic nightmare. The planet is mostly covered in water, which immediately eliminates vast areas as unsuitable for most civilized species. But that is just the beginning. Earth sits in what we call the Goldilocks zone. Commander Mali continues with disturbing cheerfulness, which means it gets just enough radiation from its star to support liquid water, but also enough to cause massive weather systems that can level entire continents. The hologram shows swirling atmospheric disturbances that make our worst military bombardments look like gentle breezes. Then we have the geological activity. The planet's surface is divided into massive plates that constantly move around, causing what we call earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The ground literally tries to kill you on a regular basis. Judge Quintara's harmonic frequencies have dropped to barely audible levels. The ground moves, show that is nothing, Amy chimes in helpfully. Show them the weather patterns, Commander. The hologram shifts to show atmospheric phenomena that violate several principles of civilized planetary development. Rotating wind systems the size of continents, electrical discharges that could power a space station, frozen water falling from the sky at terminal velocity. This is just the non-biological hazards, Commander Mali continues. Earth evolved an ecosystem based on what we call survival of the fittest, which means everything is constantly trying to eat everything else. Brandon Torres nods enthusiastically. Oh yeah, and do not forget the insects. We have these flying things called mosquitoes that will literally drink your blood, and wasps that will sting you just because they feel like it. Point is, Commander Mali says, humans spent millions of years evolving on a planet where split-second reflexes meant the difference between survival and becoming something else's lunch. What you call impossible reaction times, we call Tuesday afternoon. Admiral Vashi stares at the holographic representation of Earth's surface. Your species developed on a death world. We just call it home, Amy says with a shrug. I mean, sure, it tries to kill you constantly, but you get used to it. Plus, the sunsets are really pretty. Quartermaster A has started frantically calculating something with all four hands. If these reflexes are baseline for humans, and they are the newest species to achieve spaceflight, then their combat potential is... He stops calculating and looks up in horror. We need to completely revise every tactical assessment in the Galactic database. General Krafnog's armor plates are rattling audibly. Are all humans capable of these abilities? Commander Molly considers this question seriously. Well, Amy and Brandon are pretty typical, maybe slightly above average for humans who grew up in rural areas. City humans tend to be a bit slower, but they make up for it with better pattern recognition and technological integration skills. Above average, above average, above average. Commander, I managed to croak, when you submitted your species for Academy admission, why did you not mention any of this? Commander Molly looks genuinely confused. Mention what? That we can catch things and avoid getting hit? We assumed that was basic competency for any species advanced enough for space travel. I mean, how do you survive long enough to develop technology if you cannot dodge a thrown rock? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when everything finally clicks into place in my poor, overwhelmed brain. We did not admit the weakest species into the Galactic Defense Academy. We admitted apex predators from a death world who consider surviving constant mortal peril to be normal childhood development. Amy Kowalski, who caught my combat blade without looking, represents the average baseline for an entire species that evolved in an environment so hostile it would be classified as a military testing ground by any sane galactic civilization. 3 hours later, I submit my formal request for transfer to Admiral Vashi. I am asking to be reassigned to asteroid mining operations in the Outer Rim. It seems like safer work. After all, asteroids do not have reflexes. The humans, meanwhile, have been accepted into advanced combat training with honors. Amy asked if they could increase the difficulty level on the reflex testing because she found it a bit too easy. Brandon suggested they add moving platforms and environmental hazards to make it more like home. I do not want to know what they consider challenging. And that is how I learned that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not plasma cannons, or black holes, or even Kython battlecruisers. It is a human who grew up playing catch.